Welcome to Beyond the Bubble podcast, featuring monthly talks and updates on Viking men's basketball, where they're at and what they're up to.
All right, we're back. Beyond the Bubble, I've got Tyler Thielges sitting down with us, an alum from Valley City State men's basketball, Valley City State. What years, Tyler, did you play here?
So I graduated high school in 2012 from Lemoore, and right away out of high school I went to South Dakota State and played in their football program, actually.
Okay.
Loved their program. Obviously, as you can see, they're going to play in the national title tomorrow. Just an incredible culture there. However, my first love is basketball. I love basketball. I wasn't a good enough basketball player to play at South Dakota State, and being from the area, I knew that Valley City State had a strong tradition and reached out to them, and they brought me in and offered me a scholarship, and I played from 2013 through 2015, so 2 seasons here.
Okay. All right. Very cool. And now you're in Lemoore now, right? Coaching varsity basketball there. We're recording this right now, right, Mitch? We're recording. Yeah, good thumbs up. And during the Barnes County tournament that you guys are in, and you're in the championship game today against Barnes County North. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay. And we were lucky enough to have you on before the game. We really appreciate you doing that before a big game today, taking the time out to sit down and talk. So I didn't know you went and played at South Dakota State for football. What position did you play?
I was a quarterback.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, so, yeah, you're pretty, how would I say this? You're the guy that leads the huddle and knows all the plays and all the lingo and all those things. In your experience playing college football, or you didn't play right away, right? Obviously, you went there and redshirted.
Yep.
Is that
correct.
During your time there, what did you learn most about being a college football quarterback in practice and those things?
Oh, just the responsibility that you have. They say leadership is one part responsibility, one part influence, and you have an influential job as a quarterback. Same thing as a point guard in basketball or a catcher in baseball. And, I played all those spots. My, parents raised me well, and that was kind of one of the things that they stressed as I grew up is like being a leader. And, at South Dakota State, it just took it to a whole different level. Coach Stig just retired after the national title last year. He took a chance on a small-town guy and gave me the opportunity to be in his program, and that was like a coaching clinic in and of itself, being in his program for one season.
Okay.
Operated the right way and really taught you a lot, not just about football, but about life and things that you can carry on with you into things like coaching.
Sure. Now, you said something about your parents. I've met your dad, and he was a long-time basketball coach at Lemoore, right?
Right.
How many years did he coach there?
I think it ended up being 18 years.
18 years. How many wins do you know?
I think I know he hit some milestone his last year or two. I don't know if it was 300 or something like that, but somewhere in that ballpark. He was close to 18 wins per season.
And I've always heard the name Thiel. Just ever since I got here, I've heard the name from Lemoore. Sat down with him, spoke some basketball a little bit. Wonderful experience, and you got to grow up with that, which sometimes I'm jealous of. In terms of, my dad was a wrestler.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think we've talked about that a couple of times on the podcast, and it's just a different feel,
Oh, for sure.
My dad, when I played basketball, would always tell me to do certain things. I'm like, that's what a wrestler would do, Dad. Yeah, you can't really get away with that anymore. So, but that's cool. Now you're coaching Lemoore. So you took over for your dad, correct?
Right.
How has that transition gone?
Well, he's set a great foundation, obviously, as we talked about. So there's some things, it's not like I was walking into a total rebuild where I had to, change everything. Obviously, I want to put my own stamp on it. I want to build upon the tradition that he's taken Lemoore, Litchfield, Marion basketball too. However, I mean, there's some principles that remain in our program. I mean, we're always going to play tough defense. That's, one of the things he stressed is tough defense, and traditionally we were always good on defense. He demanded it. If you were going to play, you had to do that, and then also valuing the ball on offense. We have a strong athletic tradition in Lemoore. I wouldn't say that we got a bunch of straight-up basketball players. Got a lot of guys that are athletes and competitors. They play football, they play baseball. Might not pick up a basketball as much as we'd like them to in the off season, but we really felt like, or my dad really felt like, with athletes and competitors, you can always have a strong defense. And so just kind of building upon that, and hopefully, like I said, putting my own stamp on it and maybe taking it to new heights.
Okay. That's awesome, man. Like I like hearing those things. Whenever you get a coaching job, it's your program, right? And you got to make it yours. But also respecting the past is something you got to do. And there's a lot of people like, well, he did it this way and he did it that way. I went through that when I came over and took over for Coach Kaminsky. It was like, well, Coach Kaminsky did it this way. And I'm like, well, I'm not Coach Kaminsky. First of all, I'm not as tall, so this is going to be different. And that's very cool. Like, and everybody has to. And I always heard this advice too: is like the only way the kids are going to respect you or players are going to respect you is if you being you, and that's the only way they're going to think it's genuine, and you have to do that. And it's tough.
Absolutely. I mean, being authentic, because kids can read you, 100%, and. I'm my dad's child. I got a lot of similarities to him, but there are some distinct differences. And if I tried to be like him, I'd be terrible at it. But I think there's some differences that I can be really good at and really embrace. And hopefully the players respond to it, which they have so far.
Sure. Well, let's get back. I mean, we can go on and on about that stuff, but I want to talk about you a little bit in terms of, so basketball was your love, okay, but you decided to go play college football at South Dakota State. You were there for a year?
Correct.
When did you kind of make the choice that you wanted to go play college basketball someplace?
I decided over spring break.
Okay.
So right before spring football started, came back. Actually, my brother Brady was in the state tournament, and that kind of sparks things too, coming back to that environment. And but it was always something I thought about. I mean, even in high school, that's what I wanted to do. It's just that I had probably higher or more opportunities in football. And but I decided to make that choice, and I don't regret it. I had some good experiences playing basketball, learned a lot of what to do, learned a lot of what not to do from different coaches that I had and different experiences I had through college basketball.
Sure. So when you made the decision, and I can't. You said like 2014. You kind of decided that it was going to. Is that
2013?
2013. Yeah. I'm sorry. How recruiting works nowadays is like you've made that decision that you're leaving. Did you have other football programs trying to take you someplace else also?
So this was like right before kind of the way the portal works and stuff like that now. So it wasn't quite that back in 2013. When I talked to my coaches, they were very respectful and asked if there was any programs that I wanted them to reach out to, and that they would be willing to do that. And I just said no. I mean, I want to play basketball, and I knew that I had local opportunities here in North Dakota.
Okay.
Jamestown recruited me fairly hard, and VCSU didn't as much in high school, and I actually asked the assistant, so why didn't you guys recruit me out of high school? And he said, well, the word on the street was you're playing football. Yeah. So it worked out. They were certainly interested. Like I said, offered me a scholarship, and I jumped on board because I knew that defense was stressed. Kaminsky was a good coach and had a good reputation, and I was excited to do that. They had got a good teaching program here at VCSU, and I knew that I wanted to coach in the future, and kind of got an in when you become a teacher to be a coach.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, and we can brag about VCSU, right? We're always doing that, Mitch, right? And the biggest one to brag about is education. We are I don't know if this is the right term, premier education school in North Dakota. And, we produce so many teachers every year, and the amount of connections that we have in regards to education is ridiculous. And so, yeah, I mean, that was probably a little cherry on the cake, right? And you're like, I want to go play college basketball, but then they have a really good education program. Why not VCSU, right?
Yeah, it just made sense. I didn't really look anywhere else. This is kind of the place I targeted. They were interested, like I said, and it worked out for a couple of years there.
How was the transition from playing a year of football going into basketball shape? I mean, was there a difference? I mean, how would that be?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the shape is different. I mean, football puts a little more of a premium on putting on mass and strength that way.
Okay.
Whereas basketball, that's not always the most beneficial thing. You got to move and you got to be light on your feet, especially as a guard. And I was obviously a guard. So just getting into shape that way and, playing, going from a Class B school where, there's some good players and all that, but the speed of the game isn't even close to what the speed of the game is at a place like Valley City State. So adjusting to some of that, that was an adjustment period, but it ended up working out okay.
Did you think your year of football helped?
Yeah, discipline-wise especially.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get into a program like that, it's
different.
It's no accident that they have the success that they have. I mean, like I said, the culture is incredible. It's probably the best culture I've ever been a part of.
Just push you every day, regimented, all the stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the discipline. I mean, the type of guys that they bring in, the guys of character that all are on the same page as far as work ethic and responsibility and discipline. And, just the coaches having those boundaries. But, with those boundaries, as you know as a coach, I mean, you step on toes at times and you have those boundaries, and you also encourage at times and show them love that way, and they had a really good balance of that there.
Cool. So you've probably applied some of that to your high school basketball program. Let's just, you've talked a lot about it so far, and it sounds like you have a major respect for South Dakota State football. What have you taken from them, like specifically that you've applied to your high school program?
Yeah, just, really, for me, like I talked about, I mean, I was probably like the fourth string quarterback. I wasn't an important piece of the competitive puzzle.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, Tyler. You're important. Like, I always tell that to my bottom, like, guys that don't get the time and all that stuff. The importance of those guys are big. I know you felt that way, but I just sitting here with you, I know you were important in with regards to at least those top two quarterbacks and probably your support and all those types of things. I would think that would have been tremendous for them. So
no, absolutely, and you understand that, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Not everybody understands that.
Yeah,
the coaching staff there understood that and really valued development. And I think that's something that I try to apply to our basketball program is like, freshmen and sophomores, you might not be there yet, but your development is very, very important. And not just basketball-wise, skill-wise, but also just character-wise, because we have a certain type of guy that we want competing in our Lobo program, one that's mentally strong and one that's able to handle adversity and just play tough.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that's like, we always get into these conversations. I feel like my dad when I bring this stuff up. I'm like, back in my day, we had to go in through and do these things, okay? And I never know what the right answer to that is whether I went through harder things or this group is going through harder things. I do think that my generation went through different things compared to this new generation of, well, here's their challenges. Do you think, how would I say this, that kids are more, or players are more in need of immediate satisfaction and not willing to go through those tough years of like 9th and 10th grade? I went through 10th and 11th grade were tough years for me, and that really blossomed in the senior year. Do you think kids are kind of skipping those steps now, or it's just us old guys saying, well, I had to do this?
No, I think there's some truth to that.
Okay.
I think that the challenges that, like different generations face is different, but they're still challenging in of themselves. I think, now, they crave that immediate satisfaction.
Okay.
And I think, you could pinpoint many different things, but I think one thing is just, the phones, the immediate gratification. And
Sorry.
Things. Right. You know what I mean?
Putting
it's
that away
just,
right now.
They're used to kind of having things right away instead of kind of having to develop that patience and persistence.
Okay. So I ask you that question because you're in the trenches with that stuff more than I am at times, because you're in that developmental stage where they're getting introduced to the tough times of basketball. Like, you 5th and 6th grade are fun. It's a lot of inclusion, all that type of stuff. 7th, 8th grade's kind of this, same thing. Let's find out who's going to be a basketball guy. Smaller schools, I'm not sure.
That sounds right.
That's right. Okay. And then once you get to 9th grade, you start kind of, how would I say this? It gets really tough because you start seeing it's not all about inclusion anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's about production and whether or not you're dedicated, the commitment there. And I mean, just in my time, I remember like B squad, that was something 9th grade that I got moved up to. I'd play a few minutes in 9th grade basketball with my current classmates and all that type of stuff. And then I'd go play up in what we call B squad.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year was B squad varsity, and you get split like that. It was really tough because you play half games. Like, okay, you're going to play half of the game with this group, and then you're going to play half the game with that group. And then also the other kids feel like, well, he's getting treated this way compared to me and all that type of stuff. And then there's other kids that don't even see the floor, and that's tough on them. But if they didn't go through that, they might not work harder to become something better. And I feel like certain kids nowadays just don't even value that. Or even parents sometimes don't value that teaching model that we used to go through. And I'm not sure what the teaching model is now. You've probably got a tough job in regards to that every year right now, because you have to deal with all these factors and make sure the kid stays confident in himself at the same time. So I'm not jealous of you at times. I get to go like, hey, I really like that kid, and I get to go attack that and just be like, all right, come to my program. I feel like it's just, now they don't always make that decision to come to our program, but usually I'm picking guys that I really enjoy coaching.
Yep.
And that's tough. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like at the college level, I mean, that's kind of a luxury, is you get to recruit the type of guys that fit your program. Mm-hmm. Whereas at the high school level, especially at the small school level, you're working with the hand that you're dealt.
Yeah.
And, and like I said, I think that's what I learned from my dad, that he did an incredible job of. I mean, there's some non-negotiables that are rock solid, no matter what kind of group he has, whether it's tall, small, quick, slow, whatever it is. There were some non-negotiables that remain the same, like I talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. But he did an incredible job of adapting, offensively. Maybe he prefers a motion-style offense, but there might be times where you got to,
flex.
You got to do stuff like that, maybe a different kind of offense. Same thing defensively. You might prefer full court, man-to-man, in-your-face defense, but sometimes you might have some big guys that are capable of doing some stuff, and that's not one of the things they're capable of doing.
Right on.
You still play a tough defensive style, but it just might not look exactly how you personally prefer.
Yeah, and we all have a personal preference to basketball, don't we? Like I some of my biggest struggles in coaching is that I grew up playing a certain way, like fast, pressing, high intensity basketball. Sometimes it looks undisciplined, but there is discipline in it. Mm-hmm. And then like my first couple of years, we had to play really slow, and I'm just like, oh. This is really hard for me to adjust to, and I'm totally hearing you. And sometimes it's fun, because it's
a challenge,
right?
And that's enjoyable for guys like us that want to compete.
And we're playing so much zone right now. I was never a zone guy. I never knew anything about zone going into last year. Like it was always man-to-man pressing, or a pack-style defense. Now I'm running a 1-3-1 zone, and I'm like, I never ever dreamed that I would be coaching a 1-3-1 zone, especially in the college level. I'm like, I'm not Boeheim, man. I'm like, I don't know anything about it, and I had to learn.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
That's interesting because some of my buddies and they're coaches now, and we would talk basketball, and how we would coach and all that. And I was the same way. You know, offensively, we're going to, have good motion. And I'm still a motion guy, but defensively, I was all pack line. I said, that's the way to go. I mean, that's when Virginia was having all that success with Tony Bennett. And they're still good at it. And I really enjoyed that kind of style of defense. And but then, as you've seen, I mean,
you're running zone right now at certain times, aren't you?
Yeah, we mix in a 1-3-1 zone like you, and we do some full court man, and then we have something that we call alpha, which is our style of amoeba defense.
Okay. Yeah. I watched it 2 days ago. I missed yesterday's. I had date night. Sorry, my wife. It was date night, so we needed to do that, and I made sure I designated that time for her. And then I watched you 2 days ago, and I was really impressed. The other team was at Richland. You were playing.
Weimar Lidgerwood.
Lidgerwood. I'm sorry, and they ran some kind of zone at you, and it really kind of took away from like your motion type stuff that you wanted to do and all that stuff, but you guys still came out on top. But it was interesting to watch the chess match between you two coaches and just kind of see how those things panned out. And you came out on the better end. And I didn't get to watch yesterday, but I heard you guys played really, really well. Your best player had about 31 points, 10 rebounds or something.
Yep.
With Max, right?
Yep.
And then you got Barnes County North today, and that one's going to be fun to watch. I'll be there at 4:30.
Sweet.
And me and my daughter will be watching that one in the stands. Well, cool. Let's get back to you again. We could sit and talk coaching again like forever. But your time here under Coach K.
Yep.
Did you call him Coach K? Kaminsky. Sorry. How did that go? Like you've told me before, you've enjoyed your experience and all that stuff. But can you give me some highlights of your basketball career here?
No, obviously he's a tremendous coach. Got a lot of respect for him. He actually ended up, so from Valley City State, I went to the University of Sioux Falls and played a couple of years in their program, and he went to Wayne State. So, we'd sit there and talk during the women's game, and I still got a lot of respect for him. But, yeah, my 2 years at VCSU, we weren't as competitive as his teams usually are. We were probably 500 or a touch below 500. Still learned a lot. I mean, Coach Kaminsky is a tireless worker. Like film and knows the game very, very well, and was able to learn a lot. We had a young group. He kind of came off a national tournament the year before I came here, and brought in a lot of North Dakota guys.
Okay.
And so we had a lot of freshmen in our program, and then the following year, a lot of sophomores in our program. So as you know, to compete at the collegiate level, it takes a special freshman group or sophomore group to compete with juniors and seniors.
Yeah, it's just a different, how to say this, the body, it's really weird because usually boys / young men take a big transition between either that it's the freshman year, you really don't see much change. Sometimes between the freshman and sophomore years, they'll come back and you'll be like, okay, look different.
Yep.
But the sophomore to junior year, when they come back, you're like, whoa, okay, we look like a man now. Like that kid looks a lot different than he did 2 years ago.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's what you're getting at, is just the physicality of a freshman, sophomore versus a junior, senior is just, there's a lot of gap there.
Yep. Yeah, so then after that sophomore year, like I said, we went about 500 both years, and some of the guys ended up deciding to go elsewhere or whatever, and I had actually ended up finishing up my classwork for my elementary education degree.
Okay.
So then I had to make a decision, do I student teach and move on with my life, or, what do I do? And it ended up working out. My uncle coached in the NSIC. I had always that was one thing that I did want to do.
That's Coach Steeman, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Coach Steeman. I wanted to play in the NSIC, and so I decided I really liked athletic performance. I actually took some exercise science classes here for fun.
Okay. You don't hear that very often, do you, Mitch? Classes for fun. This guy's a lot better than me.
Yeah, I was taking 21 credits.
Ooh.
But anyways, I decided, all right, I'm going to do the NSIC thing, and I'm going to get my exercise science degree. And then when I'm done playing basketball, I'll do my student teaching and get rolling with life.
Sure. So elementary ed.
Yep.
So you teach that now?
So I taught 6th grade for 3 years
Okay.
in Litchfield, Marion,
Okay.
and I'm in my 3rd year teaching K through 12 Phi Ed. So I kind of meshed the exercise science and the education stuff together, and
Sure.
I teach Phi Ed in Lemoore.
Okay. So you have anything from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade right now? Or is that?
Yep.
Oh,
correct.
boy. Okay, we got to talk this through. Okay. So, because my daughter's a kindergartner, and the difference in teaching style between a kindergartner, let's say even say a 5th grader, is night and day, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, so how enjoyable, first of all, when you have kindergarten, how does that go? Is it like you have to change your personality, don't you?
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah.
How do you do that?
Man, I'm far from perfect when it comes to the younger elementary. That's for sure.
Okay.
I definitely prefer the upper grades, but yeah, you got to be a lot more approachable and
Right.
got to be
Goofy?
a lot more goofy and find ways to keep them on task while having fun exercising.
Yeah. I mean, I do it because I got to go home and then I have to be goofy with my daughter, right? Like, I'm so serious. I've got a bunch of 20-year-olds, running around for 2 hours, and you got to make sure they're disciplined. You got to make sure they're doing this correctly. You got to talk to them this way, all this stuff. And then you go home and you walk in and you're going, hey, honey, how you doing? Oh, that's really cool. Are you coloring?
Yep.
That is such a 180, Tyler. And you have to do that every day with a bunch of, that's got to be draining at times, doesn't it?
Yeah, I see pretty much every single student in our school on a daily basis. Yeah, it's a challenge and it's draining at times, but then at the end of the day, you get to coach basketball, and that's my favorite thing to do, and so it's easy to recharge the batteries when you're coaching basketball.
Do those kindergartners, how would I say, that make you look at life a little bit differently when times are tough?
Oh, yeah. Puts things in perspective.
You see, I whenever I'm around a bunch of little kids like that, I'm just like, life ain't so bad.
No.
They can look at it this way.
You remember that basketball's a game.
Right. And that's something that, just being around my daughter at times, I'm like, yeah, the innocence, I need some more of that innocence at times, especially with myself. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, I got to start applying that. And then there's things, even with like how much joy those kindergartners have, that you try to get implied into your basketball program.
Yep.
I quote Dr. Seuss stuff to my guys at times. Like I'm like, you being you, right? And that's truer than true. That's a Dr. Seuss thing. And I'm like, yeah, they're not kindergartners, so I'm not going to know how they're going to take this, but it is so simple that it means something.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know we're getting way off topic here in certain ways, but you being a teacher and being able to handle a kindergartner compared to a 9th grader, I'm like, that takes a lot of talent, in my opinion, because I get to sit around and handle a bunch of 20-year-olds all the time, and you guys every day. This is my respect for teachers nowadays, is the amount of different things that you have to do hour to hour is unbelievable, in my opinion. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of shooting you out a lot of, lift you up stuff, but
no, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for our everyday teachers right now. First of all, let me tell you this story. My mom was a kindergarten teacher.
They deserve to be paid extra.
Right? It's unbelievable. And I had to substitute teach for her twice when I was right out of college. And, when you're right out of college, you feel like you know everything, right? I could do this, right?
Right.
And she listed off all the stuff for that day that I had to do. And dance to the Mambo number 5 was one of them. Sing them this. And I'm like, I got through half of the Mambo number 5 and I'm like, I can't do this.
No, I got a similar story because I substitute taught in kindergarten after I finished up student teaching.
Sure.
And I had to tell the principal, I can't do kindergarten again.
It's different, man. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for those personalities that can sit there and act goofy like that and do that stuff, because I'm just like, I'm so uncomfortable doing this, and it's weird.
Yep.
But they handle it, and they handle it at a high level, and they get those kids to learn. They do.
They do.
So what do you enjoy most about teaching Phi Ed or physical education?
Well, like I said, I mean, I'm very interested in exercise science and all that, and we can shoot out a bunch of statistics about obesity and activity and how that impacts all facets of life. So that's probably my favorite part of teaching, is just being able to be one of the cogs in the wheel that maybe change the narrative on our youth and their exercise patterns, and teaching them, that exercise is fun. It's not a job. It's not a chore. Yeah, at times it requires discipline, but if you just get into a habit of living an active lifestyle, it's going to do wonders for your life, all the way down the road.
I know. And, I'm getting up in age now to where, your body catches up to you. Your back hurts every other day. You're a younger guy yet, and you're younger than me. But, just like one of my guys asked me, Coach, did you used to be able to dunk it? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, no, you didn't do it. You couldn't do that. And they're like, show me. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, not now.
No. And I'm like, it hurts on the way down, guys. Like I can probably go touch that rim right now with some ease, but when I come down, the impact that's going to be on my back, I'm going to be like, no, that was a really dumb idea.
Right.
But I mean, sometimes I look at like the times in my life where I was I'd sit in a chair all day. When I was a graduate assistant at Bemidji State, sit and watch film all day or doing stuff like that. How much that impacted my life and my body right now.
Yep.
And that's probably what you're talking about is you got to stay active. Like if you sit and run that sedentary, I don't even know, that lazy lifestyle at times, it's going to affect you when you get to the older ages, and you're just going to take years off your life.
Yeah, and it's more simple than we make it at times. I mean, it's as simple as, getting up out of a desk chair and cranking out some squats or whatever, going and taking a walk. And
you look pretty fit. Are you staying pretty physically active right now?
For the most part, I would say I'm a guilty basketball coach where I get really busy during basketball season, and I'm up late watching film and trying to figure out ways to help out the basketball program the best that I can, and sometimes physical activity and
takes the back seat.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard. It
is.
Really is. I notice it like we start end of September. And I'm in a pretty good regimen through the summer and through the spring. And I'm like, okay, yep, got it. Get up at this time, go do this, eat this. And then that first week of practice, you're still kind of still going. So week 2, you're like, I missed that workout. And then week 3, it's like, oh, whoa, I feel fat.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that.
It's really hard. And, a lot of people don't understand the coaching lifestyle of like, you feel like you have it under control, but you're never in control.
No.
Right? And it's just like, you feel like really good going into a game, and then you lose by 20, and you go, what in the heck happened there? And then you spend the next 2 weeks trying to fix that performance, right? And you're just like, okay. And so you're always constantly behind, and you're trying to figure out how to get ahead. And the only time you ever feel like you're ahead is when you have the best basketball players that you can possibly have.
Yeah, right.
Do you feel that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
It's a revolving circle at times. So, staying fit while you're in a coaching profession, it's hard, man. Like, it really is. Do you try to follow a certain diet or anything?
I need to, but no, I don't.
It's hard again. Like, I caught myself eating stuffed crust Pizza Hut coming back from Morris 2 nights ago, and thinking that, like, okay, I just need food, and that's all.
And that's
what
the
we
hardest
order.
part is like after games, it's later and you're definitely hungry. And, the guys can get away with eating whatever they want in some ways, but
coaches can't.
No,
that's hard. Like, I catch myself, and maybe you're the same. You come home after a game. 10 o'clock at night, right? Not maybe 10 o'clock. And all you want, and let's say you lose, you're eating a lot of stress food, if anything.
Yep.
and it's like a pizza, ramen, something I don't know, something that just tastes good. So you get something in your body, and before you know it, it's midnight, and you're still watching film or whatever, and then you got to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning because you got kids or whatever,
Yep.
and then you're in practice at 9 a.m. because you're mad because you lost last night.
Yep.
It's just like,
No, it is.
boom,
I mean,
right?
that's exactly how it goes for me too.
Yeah, and it wears and tears on the body and the mind and all those things, but we do get time off from it, right? That's the best way to describe it, and it becomes not more enjoyable, but when you get to that off season, you focus a lot on the right things over and over and over again, and you're trying to prepare your team to be ready for the start of the next year. And I'm not saying we have like all the time off in the world, because you're probably running summer camps and some open gyms and all kinds of stuff, and it just keeps going, which is good.
Yeah.
Keeps us young.
Yeah, we
right?
love this game, so it's all good.
Yeah. I always tell my guys, would you rather be digging a ditch?
Right.
And they look outside and they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then we need to look at this and be like, I get to play basketball today.
Yeah, I have an athlete on my basketball team this year. He's a junior.
Mm-hmm.
He is playing his first competitive basketball since 8th grade.
Okay.
As a freshman, he's a stud football player. He was an all-state football player this year as a junior. His first full season of football as well. Tore his ACL playing football as a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
Came back as a sophomore, retore it.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, there was like one practice the other day at the end when we're talking. I look at him and I'm like, man, this is fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Goes, oh, man, tons of fun.
Right? Yeah. Life experiences usually tend to make you look at it a lot differently when you're in it. And it kind of sucks sometimes that you got to go through those things to make you appreciate what's happening in front of you at times.
No, it forces you to be grateful, but you wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Do you have any of those moments that you can remember?
Man.
It's a good one, isn't it? It's a good question.
Well, when you're done playing sports, for people like us that are competitive and love playing sports, and thankfully we've been able to stay around the sport.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, there's time even as a coach where you're like, man, I wish I was playing.
Yeah.
Wish I could just get out there and do it.
Right? It's just,
But in the moment, you don't always remember that. I mean,
right.
In the moment, it's like, I'd rather sleep.
Right.
Or I'd rather do this. I'd rather have a week off.
Right, because your legs are tired, right? Yeah. Coach has been on you, whatever, and you didn't appreciate it at the time.
Yep.
Do you ever watch film on yourself?
Yep.
You still watch it?
Yep.
I found a DVD. This had to be 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, and I watched it, and I'm like, because I'm trying to coach and trying to make them perfect, right?
Yep.
And it's really hard because you're like, why can't you do this? Or why don't you do it this way? And then you go back and watch yourself and you go, ooh,
yep.
I wasn't very good either.
Right.
And that's really humbling at times. I felt like that was a really good tool for me, because I was still kind of, 2 years ago, I was like in 5th or 6th year of my head coaching career. And I wanted to like I see the game this way on my computer a lot now. Or I see it from the sidelines a lot. And then you go back to your days of playing. I'm like, did I do it that way? Or did I do it this way? What did my coach complain about me? What did he have a problem with? And when I watched my film, I was like, oh man, missed that closeout. Oh, Ryan, you didn't box out there. Why did you miss that shot, Ryan? And that made me, like, when I go and coach my guys now, I go, remember, you weren't perfect, Ryan. And when I'm in my head, and I try to sit there and I tell myself, remember, you couldn't do that too. So you're trying to get somebody else to do something better than you could do it. Maybe you should be a little bit more understanding at times. And that really opened my eyes, and that really helped me being a coach. And hopefully it's the right thing.
Yeah, right.
Like that's another constant thing that I deal with in coaching. Am I doing this right? And the only person that really can tell you that is yourself. And that's coaching sometimes, man. And keeping a guy's confidence level while you're trying to do those things is tough. It's tough. Do you go through that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like, when do you step on toes?
Mm-hmm.
And when do you need
You said that earlier, right?
Yeah. I I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge of coaching is knowing how to do that, right? You want to encourage because you want your players to play free. You want them to play confident. Going back to my days at South Dakota State, they always talked about playing loved.
Yeah.
That was a big thing in their
I
program.
like that. Playing loved.
Just knowing you're inherently loved as a human. Trying to get them to do that, but at the same time, knowing that they're teenagers or they're college men that you're trying to develop, and they're not going to be perfect discipline-wise, and setting those boundaries and, you know, stepping on toes, making sure they stay humble and continue to operate the right way.
You've got a lot of good things here. First of all, earlier you said the non-negotiables. I really liked that one. Playing loved. You got that one from South Dakota State. Describe that one to me. Let's go into that one more in depth, because I'm sitting here trying to take coaching things right now. We're gonna apply that one. Playing loved. When they first told you that, what did you kind of interpret that as?
Well, I grew up in a house that really valued faith.
Yeah.
So as a man of faith, I mean, first of all, I'm loved by God. No matter how good I am at sports or my achievements, at the end of the day, I'm loved by God.
Yeah.
And actually, South Dakota State, they incorporate a lot of faith into their program.
Okay.
There's a very large contingent of FCA, so that's Fellowship of Christian Athletes guys. So that's part of it.
Okay.
But then also knowing, like, at South Dakota State, our coaches would straight up tell us, I love you.
Okay.
I love you guys.
Yeah.
I care about you guys as humans. Yeah, I want to win. Yeah, I want to compete. Yeah, I want to be a national champion someday.
Yeah.
But I love you for you.
Yeah.
And what that does to an athlete is it frees them up. I mean, I think about myself being a competitive athlete, competitive athlete. It's why we coach.
Yeah.
We crave winning so badly, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes when you crave winning so badly, it tightens you up, and it stresses you out, and you can't reach optimal performance when you're stressed out and tense. And just kind of that slogan reminded us, like, you're loved for who you are, not for what you do.
Sure.
So let loose, trust your training, and just let the chips fall where they may.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Said a lot there that I really, really like. Playing loved. So I use the word love. I do. I think it weirds my guys out at times. Men don't like showing that vulnerability at times, right? Like it.
Yep. Oh, it surprised me right when I got into their program. Like, really?
Right? And it's hard. And like I try to say it as much as I can without making them feel weird. Like, it's a really tough thing. But when we'll have our individual meetings, I try to get as many in as I can. And, this is a bad thing to say, and it's not an excuse. But, when we get into coaching the season and all that stuff, we run out of a lot of time to, like, sit down individually because you got 15 individual meetings, and you got to kind of, like, space that around class, film, all those things that you can't take away from. Excuse me. So we have our individual meetings, and I try every time when they leave the room, I say, "Hey, I love you," and you kind of get the double take. You're like, "What? Did you say love me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but not in the term that you're thinking about. Like, I'm not a man and his wife. Like,
right.
It's not. That's not what I'm using this word for. It means I care about you, like you were saying. I care. I brought you here. We're committed to you. You're committed to us. So that's love. I mean, that and if we don't have that in our program, how can you play for each other?
Yeah, how can you make the sacrifices needed to be the best team that you can be?
And if you can't say that to each other, are you truly there, right?
Is there trust?
Right. And if we can't say it, we can't do it. Like, I mean, it's just, if you're not willing to open up, how would I say, your closed doors, if you're not willing to do that, then we're never going to get anywhere. We might have an acquaintance, right? But like you're saying, you said that word trust. You're never able to get that trust full, and that's a really hard thing to achieve. But I feel like you got to start saying it before you can fully do it. I know that sounds a little bit, that's a word before action, but being able to be comfortable with it.
It's not always a feeling.
Yeah.
Right? It's a choice.
Yeah, and you gotta make that choice. Our quote for our week this week, and I really like this one because it's kind of said a couple things about what you were talking about, playing for each other and being prepared and all those things. Is it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. I like
that.
Yeah, and it's a Joe Rogan thing. I listen to Joe on the podcast. Shout out to him if he ever wants to favorite this. But he said that the other day, and he was talking about like just being prepared for like, because he's a big jiu-jitsu guy and all that stuff, being able to walk into a room and feel like he can be confident with himself and like there's nobody that can threaten him and all that type of stuff. I like to look at it as like, just being prepared in terms of, you prepare every day in practice, right? And with that, the only way in basketball that you can feel like you're going to be one of the best is with your teammates. Mm-hmm. And that's part of preparation, being able to be all together in one, because then when you go on to that game, basketball is such a big team sport that then you can be fully prepared and you can go into war. Like you can do those things. Otherwise, you're the gardener. And you're the guy that's just going to get pushed out of the garden. And that's not going to work. So, but yeah, that's really cool stuff, man. So do you apply any of that? Like, do you have any slogans or something like that you use in your own program like that?
We talk a lot about controlling the controllables.
Okay.
We got a Lobo commitment that it's like a 4 to 5 paragraph, short paragraph thing that we recite at the end of every practice. At the end of every game, talks about being our best for the team's best. It's our creed. Yeah. Talks about relentless effort, like our core values: relentless effort, joyful attitude, humble spirit, and trustworthy character.
Very cool.
And making sure we're bringing that to the table. There's no greater honor than to sacrifice for my brother.
Okay.
Talking about our teammates and different things like that.
Did you get that from your uncle?
I got that idea from my uncle.
Yeah. I remember hearing stories about, because when you're in the recruiting world, you hear from other players that were recruited, that you recruited, and how they do certain things at their programs and all that stuff. And I remember hearing well, actually, I remember when he resigned at Southwest State. He resigned. I'm sorry, but he retired. And they recited that during his say goodbye press conference.
Okay.
I remember that. All the players were there, and they recited it one last time. And as he left, so that's kind of
it's cool. I mean, like my first year coaching, and I'm, right away it seems forced, right? It's like, this is weird because we're forcing guys to read it, and right away until we memorize it, and it says some of the stuff about our program that what we aspire to be, like I mentioned earlier. But it's interesting, a few weeks into the season, like it's not like we're trying to memorize it. It's not like we're trying to force it. It's like we mean it. Like it brings a lot of meaning and puts things in perspective after every practice and every game.
I think because we like, every team wants to play hard, right? Wants to play smart. It's the Dean Smith, play hard, play smart, play together, right? That's how he put it together, right? But I feel like players need words to identify what we're talking about. Like, if you don't put it in words with them, they start to kind of get lost. Like, they'll use another word, right? Or they'll start to think that this is the right path. But that if you have it in words, they can always come back to it and go, that's what we mean.
Yeah, I think language is so important. I mean, you even think about just performance on the court, like the language that we speak with our teammates on offense, on defense, how we talk about different screening actions and whatever is happening on the basketball court. Like we need to be speaking the same language. It's so important. It keeps everybody on the same page, and if everybody's on the same page, there's a built-in trust there. Yeah,
we use 3 terms, and some of these are harsh, and my wife tells me I'm a harsh person at times, blah, 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 blah. But we use 3 phrases. Speed kills, okay? I'm a big believer in we can be fast mentally and physically. Like I love speed. That's what we do. Be nasty means I don't like being pleasant when I'm on the basketball floor. I never believed in that, and you're not my friend, right? That was just the way it is. We can be friends after the game, but during the game, you're not my friend.
Yep.
And then sorry, this might be a little bit of a vulgar language for certain people, and I apologize if it is, embrace hell. Like, I feel like the only way that I've ever gotten better at stuff is when I start embracing really tough things.
Yep.
Tough moments, tough things in my life. And when I can embrace those things and say, this is going to make me better, instead of, me trying to dodge around it. And I just start understanding that this is the pressure of life. I handle it better. Yeah. And either, like, let's say I'm having, like, we call them 33s. We have our guys running 33s. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, you got to embrace this. This is hell. I understand that. But you have to embrace it, because now, once we get all these things done, you're going to be able to run these and think they're easy.
Yep.
And there's so many things to apply that into life. And those are kind of the three core things that we really concentrate on, especially at the beginning of the year, because those are when they come up a lot. And then we kind of come back to them during this time. Maybe like, hey, this is what we were talking about.
Yep.
Remember all that stuff you did? This is what it is. So. No,
I really like that. Yeah. I mean, it sounds cool, but you have to put into action. Like we say, improvement only occurs outside your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And it's true. You got to get outside your comfort zone, and it's like, I know, going back to my uncle, one of his big things is like rewarding versus fun.
Yeah.
Like there's times where it's not necessarily like I'm with my friends, joke around, mess around, fun. It's the hard work, but on the other side of that hard work is a rewarding experience.
Correct.
And, we talk about it too. I mean, as a basketball coach, and basketball is such a great vehicle for life, like we were talking about earlier. I mean, it's a great context
a lot of stuff in
to
it.
Develop life lessons. But, like, in order to be a tough defensive team,
mm-hmm.
like, being a tough defender is not natural. And, you have to make a conscious choice, a disciplined decision in order to raise your operating level in order to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the amount of sacrifice that takes. We went through film this morning, and my guys are getting to. We got 5, 4. Okay, I won't go too long. We talked about it today, and my guys are starting to get to the point now where we'll watch it on film and they go, "Oh, coach, that's my fault." Instead of giving an excuse why they did that. The first inclination is to be like, "Well, coach, the game was really fast. The ball got swung really fast. That's why I got out of position." Like, no. Elite teams won't say that. They'll be like, "That's mine. Next time I'll be faster and I'll be quicker."
Yeah, extreme ownership.
Right. And that, I remember reading your uncle's reward versus fun. All right, is that what it was? Fun versus rewarding? It's been on Twitter. X. It's been on X. It's been on all those social media outlets, and you could read that every year and go, "Yep, we gotta be doing this better."
Yep. And it takes on a new meaning every time.
It does. It really does. But hey, we're running low on time, and you have a game to get to.
Yep.
And I really appreciate you sitting down with us. This was a really fun conversation. I'd love to do it again if you're willing to. Maybe next year, Barnes County tournament time again.
Make it an annual thing.
Yeah, because it's just fun to sit down with coaches to kind of get more perspective. Like, how did your year in coaching go? What did you learn? All that type of stuff. But I really appreciate it. If you need anything from us, you let us know, okay?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, anytime we can talk basketball and talk VCSU, I mean, it's a great combination right there.
That's awesome, man. Well, we appreciate it. Good luck today.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. Thank you, Mitchell.
Images made for earning. Who are they really serving? I want big smoke. Wolfing on the net, but up in person, they got strep throat. Hit and make a lot of threats, but they don't never step though. Yeah, I'm a believer, by my dollars feel like Creflo. They gon' say that I